The Magic School Bus Chapter Book. The Giant Germ. Written by and Capisi. Illustrations by John Spears. Introduction. My name is Keisha. I am one of the kids in Ms. Frizzle's class. Maybe you have heard of Ms. Frizzle. Sometimes we just call her the Frizz. She is a terrific teacher, but a little strange. One of her favorite subjects is science, and she knows everything about it. She takes us on lots of field trips in the magic school business. Believe me, it's not called magic for nothing. We never know what's going to happen when we get on that bus. Ms. Frizzle likes to surprise us, but we can usually tell when she is planning a special lesson. We just look at what she's wearing. Not long ago, Ms. Frizzle showed up wearing this outfit. I didn't have a clue what kinds of weird creatures were on her dress. But I had a funny feeling we were going to find out. Was I ever right? Let me tell you what happened. Chapter 1. All right. Ralphie waved his lunch bag and ran outside to the playground. This is great, said Wanda. A picnic. None of us had been expecting Miss Frizzle to take us outside for lunch. 1 minute, we were in our classroom ready to start our new science unit. The next, the Frizz was taking us out to the picnic yard. It just goes to show you, with Miss Frizzle around, you should always expect the unexpected. I wasn't going to complain. I love picnics. And the weather was perfect, warm and sunny with a clear blue sky. I feel lucky today, I said. The only kind of luck I ever have is bad luck, Arnold complained. Not always, insisted Dorothy, and we usually just call her DA. She smiled into the sunshine as she sat down and began peeling her orange. You're in Miss Frizzle's class, aren't you? Arnold threw up his hands. I rest my case. I've got tuna fish. What about you, Keisha? Tim asked. I didn't even have to look in my lunch bag. I already knew exactly what was inside. Peanut butter and honey on my mom's homemade bread, I said. My favorite. My mouth started watering. But when I took the sandwich from its wrapper, I saw some fuzzy blue-green spots on the bread. Ew! What is that? I said. Suddenly, I didn't feel so lucky anymore. Just looking at those spots made my stomach churn. But Ms. Frizzle's face lit up like a Christmas tree. That, Keisha, is one of the many miracles of microbes, she announced. Huh? It just looks like mold to me, said Carlos. There's more to mold than meets the eye, Carlos. Lots more. Ms. Frizzle said. Each one of those spots of mold is actually made up of millions of tiny microbes. Microbes? What are they? Tim asked. DA flipped open her library book on microbes. She'd brought it outside with her lunch. I think I can answer that. According to this, microbes are teeny tiny living creatures. They're too small to be seen without a microscope, she said. Millions of microbes have to band together in order to be visible to the naked eye. Quite right. There's power in numbers, Dorothy, said the Frizz. And microbes certainly have the numbers on their side. There are more microbes than any other living creature on Earth, and they are everywhere. From the desk of Ms. Frizzle. Microbes pass the test of time. Microbes have been on Earth for at least 3.5 billion years. That's longer than plants, dinosaurs, or any other living thing on the planet. And it's a lot longer than people have been around. Human beings didn't appear until just 2 million years ago. Because microbes were the first life forms on our planet, they are at the bottom of the food chain that feeds all life on Earth. At this very moment, microbes are floating in the air around us, Ms. Frizzle went on. They are on our skin and teeth, inside our bodies, in the soil, in the food we eat, and on everything we touch. Every time you put a foot on the ground, you're stepping on billions of microbes. Arnold looked around nervously. I am? I think I'm going to be sick. Some microbes can make us sick, Ms. Frizzle admitted. Like viruses that cause chickenpox and bacteria that cause strep throat. Germs make me sick, by Wanda. Microbes that can make you sick are called germs. Or when bacteria breaks through tooth enamel and causes tooth decay, Da added. Ralphie ran his tongue across his teeth. So that's how I got my cavity, he said. This was more than I wanted to know. I just wanted to eat my lunch, but it was moldy with microbes. What about my sandwich? I asked. All of a sudden, Ms. Frizzle got a special twinkle in her eye, the same one we see whenever she's thinking of a far-out field trip. Excellent question, Keisha, she said. Class, it's time we got up close and personal with microbes. To the bus. Ms. Frizzle jumped to her feet and headed for the magic school business. The next thing we knew, we were all inside the bus with her. I must have dropped my sandwich in the rush. When I looked out the window, I saw it lying on the ground next to the picnic table. Buckle up, everyone, said Ms. Frizzle. She got behind the wheel and pushed some buttons on the dashboard. The bus got smaller and smaller. So did we. Soon we were no larger than a particle of dust. I guess you have to be microscopic if you want to mix with microbes, said Tim. Now that's small, by Phoebe. We say that something is microscopic when it is too small to be seen without the use of a microscope. You said it. Ms. Frizzle hit the gas pedal and the bus shot up into the air. Next stop, Keisha's sandwich. Chapter 2. The magic school bus flew through the air. Now that we were so tiny, we could see all kinds of creatures floating around us. Some looked like round balls. Others were shaped like rods or spirals. Are those microbes? Arnold asked. He looked as if he was afraid to breathe. Will they make us sick? Not all microbes make us sick, said the Frizz. The few that do have given all microbes a bad name. Most people don't know that microbes do a lot more good than harm. You mean, a good microbe isn't hard to find? Carlos said. Not at all, the Frizz answered. Microbes help out. By Wanda. Microbes may be small, but they help in big ways. The yeast that make bread rise are microbes. A lot of the oxygen we breathe is produced by microscopic algae. Fungi are used to make cheese, they put the blue in blue cheese, and different kinds of bacteria are used to make yogurt. Microbes are used to make medicines that keep us healthy, and they even clean nuclear waste. So hooray for microbes! Microbes come in all different sizes, shapes, and colors, Ms. Frizzle told us. She pulled out a poster from the glove compartment and unrolled it. It listed the 5 most common types of microbes. I couldn't believe all the funny-looking shapes. These are just a few examples of microbes, the Frizz explained. Within each category there are many more kinds of microbes. Some are made up of just one cell, like the bacteria we see in the air. Others are made of more than one cell but are still too tiny to see without a microscope. What's in a cell? By Arnold. A cell is a very small, basic unit of living matter. Living things can be made of one cell or many, many cells. Like the fungi that make up bread mold, Da said. Speaking of bread mold. Ms. Frizzle turned the wheel, and the magic school bus zoomed down toward the playground. I saw my sandwich on the ground next to the picnic table. The closer we flew, the bigger it looked. The mold was like a huge forest next to a sandy beach of bread. Ms. Frizzle aimed the bus at one of the spots of mold, and we plunged right in. Yuck! I definitely wasn't hungry anymore. After we landed, Ms. Frizzle handed out rubber boots and safety helmets. Then we all jumped off the Meiji school bus, right onto the surface of the bread. It was spongy and tricky to walk on. The air holes in my bread were like big craters. Wow! DA said. This is mold? It looked more like a forest to me. We were surrounded by tall, smooth tree-like stalks. Each stalk blossomed into a cluster of smaller branches at the top. There were so many, I couldn't begin to count them all. Yes, indeed. Fabulous fungi as far as the eye can see, Ms. Frizzle announced, looking at the fungi with a smile. But, what are the fungi doing here? Phoebe asked. Can you see the fungus among us? If you can, it isn't a microbe, by Carlos. Most fungi are microscopic. But some are larger, like mushrooms we find in forests and lichens that grow on trees and fallen logs. Once a single fungus is big enough to see with the naked eye, it isn't called a microbe anymore. One type of fungus, called Armillaria bulbosa, grows to be very big. There's a single Armillaria bulbosa in Michigan that weighs more than 10 tons and stretches across almost 40 acres of land. It's so big that it has a nickname, the humongous fungus. They're doing what microbes do best, Phoebe, Ms. Frizzle said. Eating and reproducing. You mean, these fungi are chowing down on Keisha's bread? Asked Ralphie. Ms. Frizzle gave a contented nod. Isn't it amazing? Most microbes such as fungi and bacteria can't make their own food. They get their food from other animals or plants like the wheat in Keisha's bread. And when they eat, big changes take place. You mean, sloppy changes, I said. My boots had started sinking into the soggy part of my sandwich. My bread is rotting. Eating with enzymes, by Ralphie. Fungi and bacteria produce substances called enzymes that help them eat. Enzymes break down food into simpler materials the microbes can absorb. So, these fungi are changing Keisha's bread by making it rot so they can use it for food. Tim said. Precisely, the Frizz told him. I was still trying to keep my balance on that slippery stuff. But I got the picture. Rotting food was good for microbes. And bad luck for me. How did so many fungi get here so fast? I asked. My mom just made this bread last weekend. I didn't see a bit of mold until today. Look up, the Frizz instructed. When we did, we saw dozens of bluish-green balls attached to the top of each fungus. Those are spores, Ms. Frizzle explained. The Scoop on Spores, by Keisha. Ever wonder what makes bread molds so fuzzy and colorful? Spores do. Bread molds can be black, blue-green, or pink, depending on the color of the spores. Spores are like seeds. They're carried to new places by the wind or by animals, and new fungi grow from them, the Frizz explained. So with the help of spores, each fungus produces dozens of new fungi, Wanda said. These microbes sure know how to get around. They work fast, too, DA said, looking at her book. Some microbes can double their numbers in less than 10 minutes. No wonder there's a lot more than just one fungus among us, Carlos joked. More microbes. By Tim. Different microbes have different ways of reproducing. Fungi make spores. Yeast cells form buds that develop into new yeast cells. And bacteria simply split in two. I did some math in my head. Wait a minute. If microbes reproduce that fast, wouldn't they totally overrun everything? I asked. They would if conditions for growth were perfect, said Ms. Frizzle. But if their food runs out, or if it gets too crowded or too hot,